what actually is a fulfilling career. If you want a dream job that's really satisfying, what should you look for? The normal approach to this is to ask you to think about what types of things you found most fulfilling in the past, and then help you try to figure out what jobs might involve those things. A bit like this. And I think it is useful to spend some time thinking about what really makes you happy, what your dream job might be. But there's a limit to how far this self-reflection can go. In the last few decades, there's been a lot of research that shows that we're bad at predicting how happy different activities will make us. We're even bad at remembering how happy different experiences made us. One well-established bias is that we mainly judge the pleasure of an experience by how pleasurable it was at the end, leading Dan Gilbert to remark, the fact that we often judge the pleasure of an experience by its end can cause us to make some curious choices. This research is summarized by Professor Dan Gilbert at Harvard in this excellent book, Stumbling Upon Happiness, all about how we're bad at judging how happy different things will make us. More to the point, I think we can do better in this workshop than just doing lots of self-reflection. There's now been several decades of research into positive psychology, the science of what causes well-being, and what I'm going to do in this talk is just summarize the key findings of that research and help you apply them to your own career. Let's start with what not to look for. We often imagine that a dream job is easy and well-paid. For instance, the most popular career ranking in the US uses the following 4 criteria. Tries to find jobs that are low in stress, not unpleasant in their working environment, have a high salary, and there's a high growth rate of positions. Now, which career do you think came out on top based on those 4 factors? Well, actually the answer is an actuary. That's someone who does statistical analysis for insurance companies. Who here wants to be an actuary? Okay, no one. And that shows that these traits are just wrong. I don't think you should be aiming for an especially high salary, and rather than aiming for an easy job, I think you should be aiming for a challenging job. Okay, so why don't aim for money? It's a consensus in social science that the more money you have, the harder it is for more money to make you happier. The relationship is thought to look something like this. As your income increases, the amount your happiness increases by goes down and down with each extra bit of income. And this is now backed, this theoretical relationship is now backed by a lot of empirical studies. For instance, this huge global survey of life satisfaction. Now, on the side, we have self-reported life satisfaction, which is basically asking people, on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with your life? And then on the bottom, we have household income. You can see these nice, clear, straight lines. These lines are straight rather than curved, as the thing we just saw, because on the bottom, we've now got a log scale. Each increment is doubling rather than going up linearly. What this basically shows is that you have to double your income to just get an extra half point of happiness on a 1 to 10 scale. That's a lot of income for a very small increase in happiness. This becomes even more extreme if we look at some other outcomes besides life satisfaction. Here's another big survey by 2 Nobel Prize-winning economists, Kahneman and Deaton. Again, we've got a log scale on the bottom. In the middle, we have ladder, which is just life satisfaction again. And again, that's showing roughly a straight line, like we just saw. But now we've got 3 other outcomes. The top one is positive affect. And for that, it was basically people were asked, did you feel happy yesterday? If you said yes, then you were counted as a 1. And then you can see on the left the fraction of people who answered yes. So about 70% of people said, yes, I felt happy yesterday. Then you've got not blue, which is you're asked, were you unhappy yesterday? And if you said no, then you're counted here. And then finally, stress-free. Were you not stressed yesterday? What you can see is that all 3 of these things almost completely go flat at around the $50,000 of annual income mark. And so what this is showing is that after $50,000, there was no relationship between how happy people felt, how much sadness they felt, and whether they were stressed or not. And on the bottom, this is actually household income. And $50,000 of household income is actually just $25,000, about half of individual income. The people in this audience are all in a group where, on average, you're going to earn more like $70,000 per year over your career. And so you're all in the region where there's just very little relationship between extra income and being happier. You're all in the flat part of the curve. And this just means that income won't be a big driver of how satisfied you are with your life. Okay, the other thing that isn't fulfilling is a low-stress job. Don't aim for an easy job, rather aim for a challenging job. Many studies have now found that the people who work hard and succeed and retire late and really conscientious end up happier and even living longer than those who drift around, don't succeed, and retire early. And this is despite the fact that the successful people actually work longer hours, get less sleep, have greater demands placed on them. The picture of stress in modern psychology is not the simple all stress is bad. It's more something like this. So on one side we have how many demands are placed on you, and then on the bottom we have how much power you have to cope with those demands and deal with them. And you can see if you have few demands placed on you, then it's more that you're actually going to be bored or drifting. Stress becomes bad when you have lots of demands but not much power to deal with it. This is the kind of boss from hell scenario where you have lots of targets but you can't actually have freedom over figuring out what to do and taking action and succeeding on those. The right place to be, the best place to be, is having lots of demands but also having lots of power to deal with those. And then that is a fulfilling challenge. If we look at a bit more broadly, I think the picture now is that stress, whether it's good or bad, really depends on the context. If you have lots of stress, but you have freedom in how you deal with it, you have power to get stuff done, and you feel like your work is meaningful, and you're socially supported, you have people helping you out, then stress could be neutral or perhaps even good. It encourages personal growth. It's a fulfilling challenge. Stress only becomes bad when it's in the context of not having any freedom, being isolated, feeling like your work is meaningless. So looking at all this, I think the message is much more that you shouldn't seek out an easy job, rather seek out these supportive conditions and then challenge yourself. Okay, so that's what not to look for. What actually matters? What should you be looking for in a fulfilling career? In the book Flourish, one of the founders of positive psychology, Professor Martin Seligman, summarizes the key factors that cause human well-being discovered in the last 2 decades of positive psychology research as the following 5 factors. The first is positive emotion. This is feeling happy, feeling cheerful, optimistic day to day. The second is engagement. This is work that you find really absorbing and that gives you a sense of flow. Then relationships is another crucial ingredient, supportive, good relationships. Meaning is the fourth one. This is contributing to a purpose beyond just your own satisfaction. And then there's accomplishments, which is being good at what you do. There's an academic debate about whether these factors really constitute the fundamental elements of well-being or not, but everyone agrees that they're at least important parts of it or they correlate with it. Okay, so what does this mean for choosing what work to do? I'm going to apply these factors to job selection and combine it with the literature specifically about job satisfaction to come up with a list of factors that you can use to choose between careers. So the first is engaging work. This corresponds to engagement from Seligman's 5 factors. Engaging work is the most empirically supported predictor of job satisfaction that's been discovered so far. It breaks down into these 4 criteria, these 4 factors, each of which has been shown in large meta-analyses to correlate around 0.4 with job satisfaction. So autonomy is how much freedom you have over how the work is done. Clear tasks is pretty self-explanatory. Feedback is how easy is it to know how well you're doing in the work? And then variety is, do you get to do lots of different types of things in the work? If you want a picture of something super engaging, then think of a computer game. These are designed to be optimally engaging. You have control of what's going on, clear aims, you know how well you're doing, and a variety of tasks. If you want to picture something unengaging, then think of this, office admin. You've got little control over your hours, what the work processes are. You have endless similar tasks, no clear effects on important outcomes. So that's engaging work, the first factor. But just engagingness isn't enough. These jobs all have high engagingness, but aren't seen by the people pursuing them as meaningful. And as we also saw, meaning was one of the other 5 factors. It's really important for being fulfilled. Which jobs are actually meaningful? Well, I think the easiest route to a meaningful job is to do one that helps others. If we compare these jobs, these are all things that the people doing them almost all find meaningful, and they're also among the jobs that people find most satisfying. So this leads to the second factor: do work that helps others. And then there's also much other research that shows that acts of altruism in your life are strongly related to a sense of happiness and fulfillment. Here's just one example of many. This really large survey across the world, over 150 countries, they looked at the relationship between giving to charity in the last month and subjective well-being, which is just how satisfied people said they are with their lives on a scale of 1 to 10. They found that donating to charity had a similar relationship to subjective well-being as a doubling of household income. And this is just one result from a large literature on the benefits of altruism, which is not just confined to giving to charity. It also applies to helping people you know, volunteering, and just doing anything where you have a sense of purpose. So, the first 2 factors were engaging work and work that helps others. Now we're going to fill in a couple of the other factors a bit faster. The third one is being good at your work. That corresponds to achievement in Seligman's 5 factors. Here, it's particularly important to do something that you're good at that uses your unique strengths. Fourth is having good relationships with your colleagues. Social support is highly correlated to job satisfaction. Then we have hygiene factors. These are basically an absence of something that is making you actively unhappy, like having a really long commute, excessively long hours, or pay that you think is unfair. And then finally, fit with rest of life. Don't think that you have to get all of Seligman's 5 factors out of your work. Another option is to seek a job that gives you enough time to get fulfilling relationships or achievements in your spare time. One thing to note about this list is that none of it is particularly related to the subject matter of the work. When we think of a fulfilling career, one common thought is to think in terms of finding the career where you're most interested in the subject matter of the work. So for instance, if you really love sport, then work on something involving sports, and that's how to be fulfilled. But there's not much support for this idea in these factors. All these factors are much more about the circumstances of the work, not the subject matter. If you work in sport but with people you hate, or doing something that you find meaningless, then you're going to end up unhappy. Whereas if you have these 6 things, then you'll become interested, you'll become fulfilled by new areas. So doing what you're interested in isn't as important as people most often think. So if you want to be fulfilled in your work, how would I sum it up? I'd sum it up as do what contributes. Get good at something that helps others. How does this work? Well, firstly, I think if you get good at your work, then you're going to be able to take care of the other factors. You're going to be able to make sure you're doing something engaging, you're going to be able to work with people you like, you're going to be able to fit it with the rest of your life. You can be really good at your work, get those other factors, but nevertheless still find the work meaningless. And that's why you add in, you also have to do something that helps others. And that's the way to also then be truly fulfilled. Why else should you focus on doing what contributes? Well, another reason is that I think if you focus on helping others, you'll actually be more successful. And that's because people will want to help you back. And they'll want to help you succeed because it's helping the world. And there's now a great book that summarizes a surprising amount of actual empirical evidence for this idea. Give and Take by Professor Adam Grant, which argues that people with a giving mindset often end up being more successful than average. And also I think focusing on helping others is the morally right thing to do. We're some of the most privileged people in the world. Here's a graph of world income. On the bottom you have the percentage of people at different income levels, and on the side you have how much income they're earning. As we just saw, you're all going to be earning around an average of $70,000 over your career per year. And that means you're all right in the very peak of that distribution. In fact, many of you will be way off this graph. The rest of the world, by contrast, barely registers. They're just far, far poorer than you will be. And this means you have an extraordinary opportunity to help people, and in my view, a duty to do so. The idea that you should focus on helping others in order to be fulfilled is hardly a new idea. Even the Buddha agrees with me. It's a theme from many major spiritual and moral traditions. If you want to be fulfilled in your career, do what contributes. In the next talk, we'll cover how.